Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we are diving into an intriguing case that examines contractual interference, business negotiations, and commercial disputes. The case of Tribune Investment and Soosan. This case is a fascinating example of how misunderstandings, strategic maneuvering, and legal claims can arise in the complex world of international trade. The dispute arose when Soosan Trading, a South Korean company, sought to buy a floating dock PD-177 for its ship repair business in China. Soosan engaged brokers including Dasan Corporation to help identify a suitable dock. Meanwhile, Tribune Investment Trust, which was a shell company under the Greek shipbroking firm GMCO, signed a memorandum of agreement with the Russian owner of the dock, Delzavod, to buy it. However, this agreement contained a crucial condition. It would be void if Tribune failed to conduct an inspection within 10 days. Tribune never carried out this inspection, but still issued a qualified notice of acceptance. Unbeknownst to Soosan, Tribune intended to act as a middleman, buying the dock and then reselling it for a profit. Soosan, however, always believed that it was negotiating directly with Delzavod, the Russian owner of the dock. Eventually, Delzavod informed Soosan that the agreement with Tribune was void and proceeded to sell the dock directly to Soosan for USD 10.8 million. Tribune then sued Soosan, claiming that Soosan had induced Delzavod to breach its contract, had unlawfully interfered with its business dealings, and had conspired with Delzavod to cut Tribune out of the transaction. The key legal questions before the court were whether Soosan knowingly persuaded Delzavod to break its contract with Tribune, and whether Soosan wrongfully interfered with Tribune's contractual relationship, and whether there was a conspiracy to injure Tribune by lawful means. Tribune argued that there was a valid and binding contract with Delzavod, that Soosan was aware of this contract, and that Soosan's direct negotiations caused Delzavod to breach the agreement. Soosan, in response, argued that the agreement between Tribune and Delzavod had already become void due to the unmet condition of inspection, and that Soosan had no knowledge of any contract between Tribune and Delzavod, and that Soosan was merely acting in its own commercial interest by dealing directly with the seller. The Court of Appeal dismissed all of Tribune's claims. On the issue of inducing breach of contract, the Court of Appeal found that there was no valid contract between Tribune and Delzavod to begin with. Even if such a contract had existed, there was no evidence that Soosan knew about it or deliberately caused Delzavod to break it. The Court of Appeal emphasized that for the tort of inducing a breach of contract, an act of inducement per se is not by itself actionable. The plaintiff must satisfy a twofold requirement. First, the claimant must show that the procurer acted with the requisite knowledge of the existence of the contract, although knowledge of the precise terms is not necessary. Secondly, the procurer intended to interfere with its performance. Intention in this case is to be determined objectively. Moving on to the tort of unlawful interference, the court ruled that Soosan was merely conducting normal commercial negotiations and did not engage in any wrongful conduct that would amount to an unlawful interference. The court noted that the tort of conspiracy by lawful means is constituted when two or more persons combine together with the aim of injuring the plaintiff, resulting in damage. The crucial requirement is that the plaintiff must prove a predominant purpose by the conspirators to cause injury or damage to the plaintiff. Based on the facts, the Court of Appeal held that there was no predominant purpose on Soosan's part to injure Tribune. Soosan had a legitimate business reason for contracting with Delzavod, which was to secure the dock directly rather than risk complications from an intermediary arrangement. This case serves as a valuable lesson in commercial dealings and contract law. First, transparency is crucial in business negotiations. Tribune's failure to clearly establish its role led to confusion and legal disputes. Second, contracts must be valid before any claims of breach can be made. If an agreement is void or unenforceable, there is nothing to breach. Third, competition in business is not the same as conspiracy. Companies are free to seek better deals, and acting in one's commercial interest does not automatically imply wrongful conduct. On a deeper level, this case highlights the impermanence of business expectations. Tribune believed it had secured an opportunity that in reality was never fully formed. Much like in life, holding on to expectations that do not align with reality often leads to disappointment. There is wisdom in understanding that circumstances are ever changing and that clarity and awareness are essential, not just in business, but in life itself. Thanks for joining me in this case summary. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe. I'll see you in the next video.